Okay, welcome. Today I want to offer some reflections about neuroscience, about AI, IQ, and also about boarding schools. So, thank you. So, last weekend I was learning about AI and I was listening to a conference and I was listening to a few different speakers, neuroscientists, and also people who've been in the movement for many years. And as I was hearing them speak, I just really tied it in with Nick Duffell's work at Wounded Leaders, but also Dawson Church, Bliss Brain, who I've spoken to on my podcast. And I just thought it'd be really fascinating just to talk about how it's almost AI, neuroscience, and boarding schools. There's a correlation here, and I just want to unpack it a little bit. So enjoy. So, last weekend I was listening to this talk and at this conference. There was a few people. One was Zach Cass, and he was one of the senior managers at OpenAI. He now is a consultant. But there was also another guy called Arthur Brooks, who is a Harvard professor. I believe he's a neuroscientist as well. And he was talking about the brain, the left and the right hemispheres in the brain, and how that links to AI. And essentially, I'll kind of unpack this a little bit. This idea that, well, first of all, I kind of begin with Zach Cass. So he was a senior manager for OpenAI. And what he was saying is that he feels that AI will accentuate the soft skills. He's asked often when he gives talks, he's often consulting for big firms. They say, what are the skills I need to learn? They ask of Zach. And he always comes back to, he says it's soft skills. It's the empathy. I'll find out the exact words he says. He says adaptability, caring, curiosity, empathy, courage, wisdom, humor. He says these are the things we need to get great at, is the soft skills. And he was talking about his father. His father is a well-known oncologist, and he'd won an award, and he always saw his father growing up as a scientist, and that it was his great mind that was winning him this award. And when he went to the presentation, he realized that actually it was his bedside manner. And one of his dad's patients said it was how his dad made him feel. And the bedside manner is not a feature, it's the product. And he was just pointing out that when we go to a stockbroker, whether we buy a car, he says it's not, and this is the research that he's done, it's not how good they are, it's whether we like them. He says no one picks a wealth manager because it made them a lot of money. It's because they trust them and they like them. And I see that this is the first thing, is that in the future, this is what's going to be important. What Arthur Brooks was just talking about, he was saying that AI is the ultimate left brain device. So left brain's up here. This is all about, thinking, compartmentalization, it's an analysis, it's the rational mind. And Nick Duffell in Wounded Leaders talks about that, and I'll read a little quote. But this idea that this is the left brain, and it's the ultimate left brain device. So as Daniel Goleman writes he's spoken more recently, and I've mentioned this before, IQ will be replaced by AI, but EQ will not. And this is what Arthur Brooks is talking about here. He says the right brain, the side of the brain, is easy to understand, impossible to solve. He calls them complex problems. The left brain is complicated problems. AI can solve complicated but it can't solve complex. And he says things like, the right brain are relationships, love, happiness, the meaning of life, relationship with God. AI can't help with those things. And as Zach Cass is talking about, in the future, that's what's going to be important. EQ. That's what Daniel Goleman is saying, is that EQ will be the future. AI can't replace that. And this is what Arthur Brooks is saying. He says, if you look for love, happiness, and meaning in tech, you wind up living a simulation of life. And I think this is really, really important. We've got to start seeing that we've got to develop these sides of the brain, develop and learn about these soft skills. So then just referencing Nick Duffell here. And he's basically saying that, I'll read the quote, this is from page 6 of Wounded Leaders. Through the study of stroke victims, neuroscientists have demonstrated that the ability to conceive the world from a purely left brain hemisphere bias presents a person with a conceptual world in which people may easily be treated as if they were objects, and wider contexts are ignored in favor of compartmentalized thinking. I shall show how it is precisely this kind of thinking that the boarding public school boy is encouraged to learn in his secretive, self-reliant world. This way of seeing the world limits perspectives, tends towards them and us context, and makes authentic relationships very difficult. So I think this is really key just to understand, is like what boarding school is all about is left brain. It's about the rational mind. It's about, IQ. It's about, the complicated problems, right? How do we solve this? It's very mental. Whereas this side of the brain is more emotional. Like Arthur Brooks says, it's about relationships, about the complex. And I see that boarding schools, they are just focused on one side. And if AI is going to replace the left hemisphere on one level, that, as he said, Arthur Brooks, AI is the ultimate left brain device. And if boarding schools are just focused on left brain, then surely in the next few years, they're just going to become obsolete. There's going to be no need for them, because what the market is going to require is, it's going to require people who are emotionally intelligent, people who have developed these soft skills. But these soft skills are not developed in these schools. And I went back to my old boarding school for a survivors sexual abuse day 6 months ago. And I asked the headmaster, I was talking about EQ and emotional intelligence and the importance of it. And I said, do you teach it here now? And he said, no. That's a problem. If these schools don't teach the thing of the future, the soft skills, how we relate, warmth, love. And for me, the biggest issue is that there's no parents there. There's no safety. There's very little safety in these environments. Maybe this has changed, but from what I'm hearing from everyone's invited and from lawyers who are still prosecuting sexual abuse in these schools, yes, it's not happening from the teachers down to the pupils. It's happening inter-pupil and still going on. So I think this is really important for us just to explore and go, okay, one is, okay, I need to develop the soft skills, learn to communicate better, to listen, to pay attention, especially if we're in leadership. And the second thing is, okay, maybe this means this is the end of boarding schools as we know it, because, and education, it has to change, because the secondary school system in the UK is, a lot of it's based on boarding schools. It's very IQ, it's very academic. There's no space really for the emotions there. And so I feel next couple of years, as Zach Cass is saying, it's like there's going to be huge revolution, and it's going to bring to the fore the importance of emotions. and we need to learn this. So yeah, exciting. So this Friday, I have a podcast going live with Corey Corpodian. I think I might have mentioned it was going last Friday, but I don't have another conversation for a few weeks, so just spacing it out a little bit. And yeah, I've also got some interesting news to share soon. And yeah, I'm going to need your support at some point to get the message out there. So yeah, exciting. Please, if you've got any questions, this resonates, makes sense, please do let me know. And yeah, thank you so much. Okay, take care.